Apologies. Good morning, I'm Chris Boserman, County Engineer. I chair our TID, and let's get started this morning by the Pledge of Allegiance, and if you won't mind, I won't stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Glad you all could be here. By TID meeting standards, we've got an overwhelming crowd this morning. we don't usually attract that many folks, but welcome. To my right is Tracy Davies, our county administrator, who's the vice chair of our board, and to my left is Pat Blaney, a longtime transportation engineer and supporter of all things Delaware County, and a good friend who serves on the board as well. So the three of us constitute a quorum this morning, and we're also joined by our ex officio member Andrew Brenner, state senator. Andy, thank you for being here, and Gary Merrill, county commissioner. County commissioners appoint these members of our TID board and have been very supportive of this, and we're thankful for that, Gary. With that, I will ask if we have any public comment.
We do not.
We have no public comment. The next item is to approve the minutes of the January 11th meeting.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye. Opposed?
That motion carries. Item 4 is the election of officers for the board, and I currently serve as chair. Tracy serves as vice chair, and Cy Keeley from the auditor's office serves as secretary treasurer. I would open the floor to nominations. If any of you feel strongly compelled to want to be the chair, I'd be glad to do that. I'd also be glad to serve, continue to serve in that capacity.
I'll move that Chris continue to serve and be drafted into this position for another year.
And I will second that.
Are there further nominations for the chair?
Move nominations be closed.
A motion to close the nominations.
Second.
And we'll vote on that. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Now we'll vote on, let's go ahead and take care of the nominations for the other two seats, and we'll vote on all of those collectively. Would that be all right?
That's fine.
All right.
I will nominate Tracy to continue to serve as vice chair and Cy Keeley to continue to serve as secretary treasurer.
I would second that. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? That motion carries. I guess we still have the motion to approve the chair. We move to close the nominations, so I need to still have a vote on chair.
I move to approve. Chris Boserman.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. And thank you, Tracy. And thank you, Cy, in your absence for volunteering. Any reports from board members?
Not at this time.
None.
All right. We've had, since our last meeting, a good bit of active legislative activity with the transportation budget, and now with the general operating budget. Just want to give a tip of the hat to Senator Brenner for the way you've responded to myself and a number of others in issues that are supportive of transportation and of the TID. We had, I believe the House or the Senate had a fairly generous increase in the TID, and that somehow didn't survive conference committee, I think. So, but thank you for your support in that. Anything in the operating budget, Andy? I'm going to put you on the spot that you think is noteworthy for us.
Not officially for another few hours.
Okay. Does it, you expect to wrap that up today?
The Senate will, if you want me to come up, I can.
Yeah.
First, let me apologize for putting you on the spot,
No, that's
Andy. We
all right.
like having you here, so don't,
That's all right.
don't not come back because you're going to have to get called on everything.
No, the Senate version of the budget will be completed today. We plan to vote it out of Finance Committee this afternoon. There will be an omnibus amendment that will be introduced this afternoon. Our caucus actually meets, both caucuses meet today at lunchtime to go over changes in the budget. We'll vote it out of Finance, and the plan is to vote the bill tomorrow on the floor of the Senate. The House will be meeting tomorrow to see whether or not they concur with it. Odds are they won't concur. It'll take a week or so of conference committee, and then what will happen is there'll be a final budget here in about 1 to 2 weeks. It has to be approved and sent to the governor by the 30th. I know the last week of June, we have 4 days potentially scheduled for session. I know Senate President Huffman would like to see this done tomorrow, but I don't know that there will be enough Republicans in the House to vote to concur. I know there's quite a few that have already indicated to me that they're personally going to vote to concur with the Senate amendments. Yeah, there were several things in there that I know we all have talked about that I can't officially say for a few more hours, but I believe will be removed as controversial amendments that were put in the Senate last week or the week before, and those will be back out. But I think we'll have a pretty solid budget here in the next couple days. So, with
Thank
that,
you.
do you have any other questions?
No, I just, yeah, I understand you not
Oh.
being able to talk about those,
Yeah.
those specific things, but is it okay if I do?
Well, since I told you, yeah, there is one
The
thing.
CRC thing is, I think, the biggest.
Yeah, that is going to be removed from the budget today.
Yeah.
That'll be one of the issues I think that will be coming out. But I did forget to mention that I am on Transportation Committee. The Transportation Committee is meeting today, and we do have the road renaming bill for the late Representative Chris Jordan for US 36. That bill will be up for sponsor testimony today, and we are concurring with the standard default language. I think we'll just call it Honorable Chris Jordan on US 36 between Delaware and Ostrander.
Nice.
So that will be probably the only major thing. There's some other naming bills and other things in Transportation Committee today. So that'll be meeting, I think, at 3 o'clock this afternoon after Finance.
All right.
Great.
So,
Thank you very much.
all right, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Thank
Sorry
you.
to put you on the spot.
No problem.
I also, since our last meeting, want to recognize Eric Hostetler, the legal counsel for the commissioners, who testified about the eminent domain bill and was a leader. I know even our Engineers Association yielded to Eric's testimony as being our testimony, and that was very, very helpful. That had the potential to really change the way projects move forward or don't move forward. And Eric's insight and pointing out a number of the unintended consequences of the proposal was really helpful. So it was recognized not just by our county, but around the state. At my association meetings, your name came up with accolades. So thank you, Eric. Appreciate that. I guess we will yield and defer the Secretary Treasurer's report until the next month in Cy's absence, and move on to item 7 on our agenda, which is the staff report. And I'll turn that over to Rob Riley for his presentation.
All right. Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning. I will just take a moment to run through our projects that we currently have underway, or either developing as a TID or are participating in cost, or have at least had discussions on, starting with the I-71 3637 interchange. See a couple guys in the audience here that were at a public meeting last night, the first of a couple of different public meetings ODOT is offering to share some information regarding the interchange project. That meeting was very well attended, very good turnout. ODOT gave I think a very good presentation and rundown of the basically the history of the project, where we are today, and the environmental study update that ODOT has been working on now for a little over a year to basically, I would say, validate or reinvestigate the corridors that were originally laid out in 2016, 2017, and that were approved in 2017. And so the recommended alternative is very similar to the ones, excuse me, that have been previously proposed. The alignment of the road at the interchange shifts slightly north. Fortunately, we've been discussing this for some time now, and so our final design that MS Consultants is developing is completely consistent with that design. And so good collaboration between the ODOT and the consultants working on the project to make sure that we haven't got too far ahead of ourselves. The other element of that project, the extension to the east, I'll back up half a step, I suppose. The previous project plan for the interchange involved basically the portion of Sunbury Parkway east of Wilson Road being built by others. That was the plan back in 2017. That never materialized, and so ODOT is essentially restudying that entire corridor all the way over towards the city of Sunbury. And so the alignment they are recommending is slightly different as you go east of Wilson Road, and it's basically an effort to, number one, avoid there's a 69 kV transmission line. The alignment will largely avoid that. The previous alignment had more conflict with that. And then secondly, where the road will cross Little Walnut Creek, that's been shifted south slightly for basically hydraulic reasons. So it'll be a single bridge versus potentially two structures, and it won't create any additional flooding impacts upstream. And so it's more of a technical issue than a property issue, I suppose, but that's the gist of where things stand now. That study will be open to public comment for about the next month. Once ODOT receives comments back, they will be meeting to discuss that, I'm sure, with ODOT to see if any changes are warranted or if the recommended alternative ought to be something different or ought to be changed. And so if, barring any major significant changes, I think we're looking at wrapping up, or ODOT is looking at wrapping up the environmental study probably this fall, and then there would be a comment period available for the final environmental document. So that's a little longer explanation than I originally intended, but that's basically some background on where things stand with the interchange. As you know, we are working ahead in an effort to shorten the time frame or timeline of the project. MS is very close to finalizing right-of-way plans so that we will be able to hopefully start acquiring the necessary right-of-way potentially this fall, roughly coinciding with the environmental approval. So I think all things considered, we're probably a good year or more ahead of where we would have been had the TID not basically stepped in and moved towards final design. So,
Rob, could I just go back to this section from the new interchange over to Sunbury? That's totally ODOT driven at this point. Or there's been no request from for our TID or for the county to participate in any of that portion. So you're providing us that update just for information on how all the pieces of the puzzle fit together.
that's
But
correct.
I just wanted to make sure our board and those observing understood that we're not in the driver's seat on.
That's correct. As of now, I don't think there's any plan or expectation that the TID will have any significant role. Now, there may be a need to talk about funding assistance down the road, but those decisions haven't been made. Those discussions really haven't taken place. But I think, you know, my expectation is that ODOT will be leading the charge going east of Wilson Road. That's a later phase of the project. So the first three phases, A, B, and C, they basically start at I-71 and they work to the west. Phase D and beyond basically extend to the east towards Sunbury. And so I think there's gonna be some time before some of those final decisions on kind of who grabs the ball and runs with it,
Yeah.
who that is, so.
Could you refresh me on how far west the first phase goes, phase A?
Yeah, the Phase A basically just goes to the west ramp intersection at I-71. It doesn't, a matter of 150, 200 feet. I'm looking at Joe Sullivan, he's nodding, west of the bridge over I-71. So it would accommodate the, I guess, westbound to southbound I-71 movement, westbound Sunbury Parkway to go southbound on 71. And that's it for Phase A. Phase B essentially was a connection over to 3Bs and K, stopping there.
Yeah.
Phase C took it the rest of the way. I think we've made the decision. It makes sense to do those both as one phase.
Sure.
So even though they're called B and C, it makes sense to do
Yeah.
those as one.
All right, thanks.
So any other questions or comments on that project? Move on to Home Road and Sawmill Parkway. Apologize, as of Friday, when I had the draft ready for the agenda, I thought we had all of the invoices ready and paid for this project. Turns out there's one small invoice remaining, so we are not able to finalize and certify completion of the project. But what I can tell you is it's basically 99% done. Essentially, we're just waiting on Shelley and Sands to install the pedestrian signal poles at the intersection and then complete the concrete ceiling on the barrier on the bridge over the railroad. And so pretty minimal work remaining. Based on the last conversation with them, they expected to have those poles in July, and it should be a matter of a day or two to install those and get all the work done. So my hope would be at the next meeting, which may be in August if I have no business to bring to you in July, but we can discuss that in a moment. We can wrap that up because we will be, good news, significantly under budget on this project, and so we will have some money we need to return to the County Road and Bridge Fund that was advanced. So that's good news for all of us. I want to talk just briefly about Sawmill Parkway Phase G2. You may recall last meeting we talked a little bit about the city, some discussions the county engineer's office had with the city regarding Phase G2, essentially, which would extend over to Section Line Road. I put a map or an exhibit in your packet. It's probably the last page if you look at that. That would be the red portion, which is Phase G2. The long and short of it is, we had applied for a $200,000 grant on behalf, basically to help assist with the cost of that project. After some discussions with ODOT Jobs and Commerce, they recognized the benefit of the project and actually offered, in lieu of the $200,000 TID grant, a $250,000 Jobs and Commerce grant to basically replace that. And so, in essence, the city is getting more money from a same department at ODOT, different pot of money. So the city will be getting $250,000 from ODOT. And also, they've been successful getting $1.875 million from Department of Development funds towards that project. A big component of that is the expansion of the Sawmill Point Business Park. That is a jobs-ready site, ready to go to construction. Has the utilities there. It's just a matter of getting a road pushed a little farther west so the access can be built. So at this point, the city, based on the last conversation I had with them, is committing to move ahead with that project and fund the balance of that project cost. So I do not anticipate asking or suggesting any additional TID involvement. As you recall, we assisted with a $500,000 grant for the previous phase. That was built in 2022. So I think the city is committed to take it from this point on. Next project, South County Line Road, Tippett Road realignment. I don't recall if we had much conversation about this at the last meeting, but this has been kind of a quickly evolving project that I've had a number of discussions with the Licking County TID. Bill Lozier is the director, and also Jared Nur at Licking County Engineer's Office. We back in March, submitted a TID application, basically as a companion application with Licking County for, we both submitted $500,000 grant applications to assist with upgrading Section Line Road and realigning that portion, which is actually called Tippett Road, once you get into Franklin County, realigning that intersection at 62. And again, there's a map in the packet. See Pat studying what looks like a map. So that's essentially, those lines are conceptual and certainly not final alignments. It's basically just a conceptualization of what that intersection might look like. But the end game there is to get a good, twofold. First off, to address what is really a functional or a traffic flow problem on 62. 62 is woefully over capacity in some hours during the day now, and will continue to get more so as Intel develops and more people move into that area. We've got two skewed intersections, one at Tippett, one at Beach Road, which are far from ideal from a safety and traffic flow standpoint. So this project basically addresses that with essentially connecting those two intersections. And then secondly, maybe more importantly for Delaware County, is that if you look at our map in the southeast corner of the county, we really don't have very good connections to the regional highway network. Obviously State Route 161 is a big regional highway as it goes through Franklin and Licking County. We have Sunbury Road. If you get out Sunbury Road, you get to 161 eventually, but you have to go through portions of Westerville. And then really the next road over that you can get there is 37 or 310 in Licking County. And so I think, to me, what my interest in this and what I think we should be interested in as a county is establishing County Line Road as a good north-south corridor, kind of getting to southeast Delaware County from 161 up all the way up to 37. Certainly for commuter traffic, but also freight, logistics, movement of all kinds of commerce. This would be a very good corridor to have. And so I think my interest in this, and I think our collective interest in this, ought to be to establishing that corridor really for the benefit of Delaware County. So that's a little background on that. Quite a long ways to go on this project. Have not heard from ODOT whether that grant application was successful, but there would be continued development of that project if we are successful, and I'll be reporting back to you once I know where that is.
Rob, you may have mentioned this, but maybe you could expound on, I'm totally supportive of establishing that corridor. The other projects we're looking at along that, from 37 down to here.
Sure.
And what that entails.
So we have several other projects in that area. Chris and I joke on occasion that if you go back to 2 years or more, we didn't really have any project dots on our project map in Harlem Township. Now we've got quite a few, and not surprisingly, that's because of the Intel effect in that quarter of the county. We've identified 3 intersections on County Line Road, starting up at Route 37. That's a skewed intersection. It's got some safety issues. The second intersection is what Licking County calls their 5 points. It's basically Center Village Road where it intersects County Line Road and it becomes Duncan Plains as you go east. And then Edwards Road runs off from that intersection as well. So it's a 5-legged intersection. And then finally, towards the southeast corner of our county at Fancher Road and County Line Road. All 3 of those intersections, based on some of the work that has been done in a contract, actually that you may be aware of or may recall, MS Consultants worked on that project as well to study the traffic flow to and from Intel. And all 3 of those intersections see a rather significant increase in traffic because, not surprisingly, a lot of the traffic going to and from Intel is going to be from Delaware County. Certainly our workforce and commercial movements getting to and from Intel. And they'll be going through those intersections because it's really the shortest route. We've probably talked about this before. There's various ways to get to Intel, but using Center Village Road or Route 37 or Fancher Road from that area of the county, kind of from the central part of Delaware County, South Central, that's the shortest route. So I say that all as to respond to your question, Mr. Brosman, but also to say we've got a lot going on in the area. Those 3 intersections I just spoke of, we submitted safety applications to ODOT, are awaiting funding or the determination on the funding for those projects. Those would be joint applications with Licking County. The one at 37 would essentially be an ODOT project between District 5 and District 6. I've already had discussions with ODOT staff. They recognize that and they would take the lead on those, or that one. The other 2, we would be in concept working with Licking County, supporting those 2. So,
Can
long
you,
answer to your short
Thank
question,
you.
Chris.
Rob, can you remind me, when do they typically make their awards for TID funding?
That should be any time now.
Okay.
I would expect, as well as the Safety Improvement Program grants. Really could be
Thank
as
you.
soon as next couple of weeks.
We'll let you know as soon as we know.
Yep.
Yes.
I mentioned this because this is in the state budget. The governor originally proposed in the state budget, and I think the Senate put back $1 billion fund. This is, I think, COVID relief dollars that are supposed to be utilized for infrastructure improvements around areas of major development, such as an Intel. Senator Tim Schaefer brought to our attention a few months ago, his county engineer mentioned the fact that when the state put about $650 million into a fund upgrade, US 62, 161, there wasn't any money actually put in there specifically for those township and county roads that needed major upgrades. They saw from their initial study that the same roads you were just mentioning. It is my understanding that some of this fund could be theoretically utilized for those type of infrastructure improvements since it is related to economic development. So when those become available, assuming it gets through the budget process as it is right now, I'll get back to you all on that and see what's available. My understanding is those types of projects, I know the city of Delaware's got their extension of Sawmill Parkway that they would like to do. That's what those dollars are supposed to be utilized for. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention, so.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
Good to hear.
So the last project, I just wanted to give you a very quick update on Bale Canyon Road. You'll recall that we are providing $500,000 in assistance to Orange Township for the Bale Canyon Road upgrades. I would expect construction to start either late this month, maybe more likely July. But that contract was awarded to Richland Construction, and they'll be hard at work through the rest of the summer. They'll probably get about half the project done this year. Unfortunately, there's some utility conflicts that are going to prevent them from doing the entire project this year, but they'll be able to get a good chunk of the work done and hopefully the rest done this time next year. So, that is the agreement with Orange Township was a reimbursement agreement, and so we would be probably cutting a check to Orange Township sometime next year. That is all the project activity I have to report. Happy to answer any questions or comment on anything additional.
Rob, thank you for your thorough report, very informative, and evidence of, we got a lot of balls in the air, and a lot of things out there that, on the horizon. Thanks for your good work, Rob. So, do you want to lead us in this item 8 discussion of potential TID projects, Rob?
I will, and I put this on the agenda, not necessarily with a specific project in mind. I really just wanted to have a conversation, which I've kind of teed up before, but as you know, we've done a number of projects over the last several years and have accumulated some of that administrative fee on those projects. We've also very grateful to the county commissioners for providing the annual pledge of funds and have been accumulating some of those funds to certainly participate in new projects, basically. So we need to start, I guess I really wanted to offer the board opportunity to talk about maybe some economic development projects. Tracy and I've had some discussions with Tracy and Monica about some of the county initiatives underway, and I think there will certainly be a place for the TID in some of those projects to help really facilitate the local infrastructure that will be needed for some of the work. I think one of the immediate potential areas is Berlin Business Park. We have, sounds like, some interested users in the area that may require some additional roadway extensions and utility extensions. Wanted to at least kind of just put that out there for discussion. Maybe, Tracy, not to put you on the spot, but anything you want to add?
No, I think the keying in on economic development projects, particularly related to growth we're seeing from Intel and some of the identified areas. The eastern side of the county, Berlin Business Park, I think there are going to be some pretty extensive roadway connections that might be needed or extensions. So I think that would be an area of focus.
I'm just going to add in the tone of discussion about economic development. We talked about Intel and what we're doing with County Line Road. There's a hanging in the balance right now is what happens in terms of development in Harlan Township, and they're discussing changing their zoning code and zoning overlay, and that could really tip some projects in our direction if they upgrade their zoning. And there's some places I think are pretty prime. There's some interest in that I'm hearing about in areas in southern Harlan Township that we probably need to be poised to react to if they are indeed economic development type projects. So that's an area that I think has the potential to explode if
Yes.
things go a certain direction. So.
And along that same line too, just, the potential to help townships on township roads as they see this explosive growth, I think we need to be open to that as well.
Yeah. Rob and I have talked about this a number of times. If you look at the concept of designated county roads and what are township roads, there's a hierarchy there, just like state routes generally are more intensely used roads with higher traffic volumes. In the county system, the hierarchy kind of steps down into the township system. But we have roads in our county that are long-standing, traditionally been township roads that have some really high traffic volumes. Orange Road comes to mind. Shanahan Road's going to be one of those that just not only from the school but from the development as the Evans Farm development moves north and gets to there, and the things that are going on in Berlin Township. So those are just two examples, but I think there's a point where that the township funding structure for roads and the load that's being placed on those from the widespread development, they don't match up to the original intention. And so not that I'm out looking for more, more mileage on our system, I'm absolutely not, but in the interest of fairness, there is probably an undue burden that is accumulating on some of our township roads that we need to address, at least be open to addressing.
I think, that's a good point. But I think also the trustees are gonna have to be brought on board with that, because when I was serving in Rob's capacity now, we had a situation that the trustees resisted an offer we made to turn a township road into a
Yeah.
county road. So,
Yeah,
there's education process involved here too.
absolutely. The major improvements needed on some of those routes and the price tag associated with that may help educate.
Yeah, I think that'll come in play real quick.
Yes, yes, indeed.
So what I'm hearing is two things so far, Rob. Economic development, which is, I think, there's certainly a really significant role our TID can play with there, both with our ability to react quickly to a proposal, and just to bring an additional funding source to those projects, but then also the local road system, particularly our township roads that are growing beyond township capacity. So, are there any other areas we ought to be thinking about?
Tracy, you brought up the point, Chris, you kind of confirmed what my same opinion, in that townships really have a pretty heavy burden nowadays in Delaware County, because they have thoroughfare roads that are carrying quite a bit of traffic that need to be upgraded. I mean, the old chip and seal or tar and chip roads of some of our rural townships probably do fine, but not in our more populated townships. There's just too much traffic, and so I think I'm constantly talking, Chris is constantly talking with our townships about some of those needs to upgrade township roads. I do, and I welcome the idea of the TID being a potential funding partner on some of those local projects. I think, frankly, the ballpark of grants we've talked about before, the $500,000 grants go a really long way for a township project. I mean, that's to me, for some townships, the difference between either doing a project or not doing a project. Being able to contribute that amount of money could be a total difference maker. So we'll certainly be on the lookout for those projects and bring those to your board as we hear about them. And just wanted to get some feedback, but appreciate that.
I think Bale Canyon is a fine example of that. I don't know that the township would have been able to move that project forward at this time without our help.
I agree.
All right, let's move on. Item 9, Rob previewed, probably won't have any agenda items that compel us to have a meeting in July, which would put our next meeting at August 9th. Any thoughts on that, or a motion about canceling that?
I'll move we cancel the July 12th meeting.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Is there any other business to come before us today?
I don't think so.
Hearing none, without any objection, we will stand adjourned.